Hello there. Today we visit Doune Castle, a medieval stronghold set near the meeting of the Ardagh Burn and the River Teith, just a few miles from Stirling. Often described as the crossroads of Scotland, where routes pass between the lowlands and the highlands. Long before the castle was built, this ground was already being used. The Romans had a fort nearby, likely part of a wider network used to watch and manage movement through the area as they pushed north. This lay close to the edge of their influence. There are no visible remains today, but it's easy to see why this site was chosen. High ground, near water, controlling movement. Even after the Romans left, the importance of the location remained. The name Doune comes from the Gaelic Doune, meaning a fort. The castle we see today was built around the year 1400 by Robert Stewart, Duke of Albany. He wasn't king, but he held power. His brother, King Robert III, was weak and unable to rule, and the king's son, the future James I, had been taken to England and held there for years. With the king unable to rule and the heir held in England, the Duke of Albany took control. He wasn't crowned, but in practice he ruled the country. He died of old age in 1420, after years of holding power. His son Murdoch inherited that position, but it didn't last long. When James I returned from captivity in 1424, he moved quickly against the family. Murdoch and his two sons were arrested and charged with treason. They were taken to Stirling, put on trial, and executed in 1425. Officially, the charge was misrule, a failure to govern properly. But in practice, Murdoch had held power for years, and when the king returned, that power was taken back. With that, Albany power ended, and Doune passed into royal hands. It was no longer the centre of authority, but became a hunting lodge and residence instead. The hearth here is perhaps representative of something deeper. In alchemy, the hearth isn't just a fireplace. It's a place of transformation. It's where material is broken down, worked on, and changed. In medieval thought, alchemy was closely tied to fire, controlled heat, contained within a fixed space. So the hearth becomes more than practical. It's a place that invokes change, slowly and deliberately, the place where the great work happens. While there's no clear record of alchemy here, the setting reflects the same idea, a controlled space where processes unfold. Over time, control shifted again. By the late 16th century, the castle was held by the Earls of Murray. It remained in use, but it also saw conflict. Mary, Queen of Scots, stayed here several times, and after she was forced to give up the throne, her supporters held the castle. In 1570, it was taken after a short siege. Soon after, a messenger named John Moon was brought here after being found carrying letters to Mary. Inside the castle, he was interrogated and tortured for information. The method isn't recorded. At the time, this could involve devices like the boot, used to crush the leg, or thumb screws. What was used here isn't known, only that force was used. There was also a chapel here, dedicated to Saint Fillan. No clear trace of it remains today, only the record that it once existed. It may have been a small internal space, or part of a section of the castle that was never fully completed, but its presence shows that this was not only a place of control and authority, but also one of belief. By the 18th century, the castle was still standing, but its role had changed again. During the Jacobite Rising of 1745, Doune was used as a prison. The term Jacobite comes from Jacobus, the Latin form of the name James, referring to supporters of King James VII of Scotland, who had been removed from the throne in 1688. They believed the king was chosen by God and that the crown should follow blood, not be decided by Parliament. To them, the Stuart line was the rightful line, and they were willing to fight to restore it. In January 1746, Jacobite forces defeated a government army at the Battle of Falkirk, one of their last victories. After the battle, captured government soldiers were brought here and held inside the castle, in the rooms above the kitchen. From there, some escaped, using bedsheets knotted together. They lowered themselves out of the window and climbed down the wall in the dark. She stayed everywhere. She stayed everywhere. One of those men was John Witherspoon, who would later travel to America and become a signatory of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. After leaving Scotland, he became president of Princeton University, then known as the College of New Jersey. He wasn't just a religious figure, he became an educator, shaping the thinking of future leaders during a period of change. At Princeton, he taught philosophy, moral reasoning, and governance, alongside newer ways of understanding the world, including heliocentrism and earlier ideas of atomism. These ideas would influence how authority and the new freedom were understood. But he did not believe in unlimited freedom, instead stressing discipline, hierarchy, and moral control. Among his students was James Madison, who would later become President of the United States and play a key role in shaping its constitution. He moved in the same circles as George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, both Freemasons, who were part of a wider network reshaping power and government. He spoke of freedom and moral order, but like many of his time, his life was not without contradiction. He owned enslaved people. From confinement in a Scottish castle to helping shape a new system of power in the New World, his life traces a shift, not away from control, but into a different form of it. And here at Doune, that pattern feels familiar. Power held, power taken, power remade. Beneath the great hall, these rooms stored grain and supplies, but in alchemical thought, transformation begins below, hidden and out of sight, with water drawn from a well and goods lifted upward through the ceiling. This becomes more than storage. It becomes a process, a movement from below to above. Beside the castle, the river Teith continues to flow. In alchemy, water breaks things down. It dissolves, carries, and reshapes. But transformation doesn't happen in the open. It needs containment. And that's what the castle provides. A fixed structure beside a moving force. The river breaks things down. The castle holds them in place. Between flow and containment, the conditions for transformation are set. Nearby, the landscape shows another layer of change. A railway once ran through Doune, linking it to places like Dunblane and Callander. The station master lived in a house beside the track. The line closed in 1965 during the beaching cuts, when much of the railway network was removed. Just beyond the castle stands another marker, the Trysting Stone. It appears on maps as early as 1866, though its origins likely go back much further, possibly to the Bronze Age. Standing less than 5 feet tall, it has been moved several times, but always remains close to this ground. This was a place where agreements were made. At local cattle fairs nearby, deals were spoken aloud and gold was counted on the stone itself. It was known by several names, including the Fairy Stone and the Golden Stone. Nothing was written. The agreement was spoken, and the stone held it. It brings to mind a line from the Gospel of Luke. If these were silent, the very stones would cry out. Local stories gave it another name, the Devil's Head. Children once gathered here, holding hands, and sang, "Ollie, Ollie, peep, peep, peep. Here's the man with the cloven feet. Here's his head, but where's his feet? Ollie, Ollie, peep, peep, peep." We're now taking a walk through Doune Ponds, once a working quarry, now a space filled with wildlife.
Tell me what you have seen. The heights of the winged ones, singing secrets. High up the willow of wisdom. The birds of prey, the birds above, the birds of thunder, sang the northern root dove. In the mind of the author, the book is written, each page anew, with every morning dew. And every morning sun.
Just a short distance from the castle stands Kilmadock Parish Church. A church has been on this site since 1746, built in the period following the Jacobite Rising, when Scotland's religious and political structure was being reshaped. In 1820, the foundation stone was laid for a new kirk, designed by J.G. Graham. Part of the earlier building was retained. The tower remained, while the rest was rebuilt around it. The church was completed in 1824 and remained in use as the parish kirk until 2008. After the Jacobite period, worship in Scotland had already shifted, less about saints and relics, more about structure, discipline and doctrine.
Everything is gonna turn back to how it was. Ding ding!
Ding ding. This church is also connected to John Witherspoon, who we spoke of earlier, and who was born in the parish before leaving Scotland for America. Gonna go check out the old mill. Let's have a wee look. Eh? Our journey ends in Callander with a final stop at St. Kessog's Hill, traditionally linked to St. Kessog, an early Christian missionary. This small rise became a place of memory and later gave its name to a nearby church. Today it's quiet, but like the other places we've seen, it reflects the same pattern. Ground that is used, marked, and returned to over time. Fish and chips in the van to end the day.
Hello.
Fish and chips. Thanks for watching this episode of Kirks and Crowns. We'll see you next time.